can't even see anybody. Well, thank you all for being here. This is, for me, this is a doubly exciting event. First of all, I love old theaters like this. I love to see them in use. This theater dates back, I believe, to 1914. It's almost 100 years old. There's no better place to see a film than in a theater like this, and it's just great to have everyone here. And also, you know, obviously it's great to have The Godfather here. This is one of the great films. Obviously, I don't have to tell you guys that. I can't see it. Is there anyone here who hasn't seen the film? Seeing it for the first time? I don't see any hands. It's just one of my, you know, as you know, I've got a book out called Not to Be Missed, 54 Favorites from a Lifetime of Film. It was very hard kind of getting it down to 54 films. That was actually even harder than writing the book, but The Godfather was always going to be in there. It's one of my really 2 or 3 favorite films of all time, and the chance to talk about it and to see it in a theater like this, I just am delighted to be here. And I'm also delighted that I'm going to be sharing the evening, and in fact, I'm talking now, but she's going to soon start doing more of the talking. We're here to hear Alison Martino. Her dad, Al Martino, plays Johnny Fontaine in the film, and this is a great opportunity to hear from one of the people who was so involved in the film, what the film was like and what the film meant to her family. So without further ado, I want to bring up Alison Martino. Well, this is really, this is exciting.
Very exciting.
So you might as well, what are you holding there?
He knows what I brought. Okay, can you all hear me? I did bring you something. This has not left our house in, I think, 42 years. It's my dad's original Godfather script. Wow. I know.
That's good.
And, no, really, and it's not left the house since then, so I couldn't think of a better night to bring this. And would you like to hold it? It's falling apart. So
it is,
no, it's very, very old.
It says The Godfather. This is legitimate.
It was probably one of the first working scripts. It changed over every day.
Yeah.
They rewrote this movie. Mario Puzo kept writing it over and over again. Thank you. And it was like getting a newspaper every day. But my dad's scenes were intact from the script. So.
Great. So, you know, how did, you know, obviously the opening question is, how did he get the part? How did this happen? How did he hear about it and how did he end up getting it?
Well, it sort of goes back. I got to go back about 1952. My father had just been starting out, and he really struck it big with a big hit called a song called "Here in My Heart." It was his first single, and thank you. And he had some struggles where when this hit #1, and he was doing really well. A lot of clubs were coming his way, and casinos, and he realized he wasn't seeing any money coming in. And he couldn't understand this, and the song is #1, it's all over the world, and where's my money? So he decided to call his manager at the time and say, well, what's going on? And his manager just said, Al, I'm sorry, I'm not your manager anymore. You have new managers, that's all I can say, goodbye. So he, again, couldn't understand it, and he got a hold of those managers. They were more, they were wise guys. And it wasn't totally uncommon back then for organized crime to control the record business. They controlled the clubs and the studios and all that. So he figured this was pretty serious. He went to meet with them in a sketchy place in Atlantic City, and he was approached by a couple guys, and they said, you owe us $75,000 now, and for the rest of your career, you owe us everything.
Wow.
And you need to put your name on this paper to sign this over. And he was, you know, he's petrified, but he did sign it because he figured, I'm going to sign this, and I'm going to deal with this later, because they roughed him up, and they put a gun in his mouth and threatened him and beat him up, pistol whipped him, and weeks went by, he could not come up with the money, and the threats got worse, and they advised him to leave America, to go to somewhere else until he had that money to come back to the States.
Wow.
So he flew to London, where it was English speaking, and he didn't realize he'd be gone 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. and he really wanted to come back. Of course, his family was there. And so the big mobster, who doesn't get bigger than this as a real Godfather, Albert Anastasia, who was controlling all of that at the time, was gunned down and murdered in a barbershop. And when he got caught wind of this, he thought, maybe I can come back now, that the influence of his power wasn't as strong anymore. But it wasn't that easy, so he had to find another Don to speak with to get permission. They refer to him as a gentle Don, and his name is Angelo Bruno. He called Dad and said, you know, I need to know what happened. And I remember he told my dad specifically, there's 3 sides of the story. There's your side, their side, and there's the truth. Tell me the truth. And he told him what happened, and he sort of fixed things. I think that Angelo Bruno was the kind of guy that if you couldn't go to the police, you had to go to this guy to take care of business for Dad, and so he was able to come back. So then when he landed back in LA, things picked up for him, Capitol Records re-signed him, he had a pretty good career coming, and then Mario Puzo wrote The Godfather years later, not so many years later, this is 59, now 66 the book, I think 67 the book came out, rumors that they were going to make a film. And my father was very close to Phyllis McGuire from the McGuire sisters, who was dating Sam Giancana at the time, for saying all names. I'm never going to get a date after this. So he met with Phyllis and said, "There's a part in this book. It's you. You lived this. You did have to see a real Godfather to come back to America. And this is you." So he really wanted that part, and I don't think my dad really was set to really become an actor. He had a good singing career. So he went to see Robert Evans and Al Ruddy, producer Al Ruddy, and said, I'd really like to get this part, it's me. And he got it. And the part got a little bit minimized through the rewrites of the script. I don't know if Francis Coppola wanted Johnny Fontaine in the movie at all. But Bob Evans was, no, it stays in. And so that's he got the part.
Wow.
But I think that, I think that he identified with that character, obviously, so he wanted it that bad.
And I gather, we talked about this on the phone a little bit, he had some kind of experiences with Marlon Brando?
He did. My dad was nervous. They shot the wedding scene and the scene with Marlon in Staten Island. And so he got there around, his call time was at 7 a.m. and they were shooting all day. Francis shot all day. And my dad was he watched the scenes with Sonny and Marlon in the office there at the wedding scene, and there was some downtime, and Marlon had said to Francis, "Who are we shooting next?" And Francis says, "Al Martino." And Marlon says, "Well, isn't he a singer? He's a singer, right?" And Francis says, "Yeah, but we got to make this one work." So Marlon said, "Well, you better get him drunk." This is all true. So Dad had some downtime, and his scenes were coming up a little bit later in the day. So he did go down to the corner and bought a bottle of scotch.
Oh my God.
And they're about to shoot Dad's scene. He walks in, there's Marlon, there's the desk, the camera, and my dad puts the scotch on the table and he says, "Okay, Marlon, you take the first drink." And Marlon it broke the ice. And because, my dad was trying to gain respect from the actors. And this sort of broke the ice, and Marlon and him ended up having a really, really good time. But the thing is, they did drink that whole bottle. And I think that when you see the scene, Dad did not see that slap coming, so it's not in the script. So it's real. And when he does slap him, Marlon was so brilliant to actually pull, because it's one camera shot, he pulls my dad sort of at the side of the desk after he slaps him, and you can see my dad, he's really, I think maybe that's why he wanted him to drink. So he didn't feel it so hard. But that's 2 takes.
Wow.
And I think it's a composite of both of them, but the first slap is it.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they shot the whole wedding thing? You said they shot that wedding for a month, you told me?
It was about 3 weeks,
Wow.
just the wedding scene.
Just the wedding
Just the wedding scene. What they had to do is they built a wall around the Staten Island property. It was a real house. And there was a lot of press that was trying to get in. And I think that's when they knew they had something big, is when the press is out there and the papers are there and there's photographers. It's funny because that happens in the wedding scene when Sonny comes out and he wants to bash those guys over the head taking cameras. It was actually really happening. And I think that's when they thought, because it was a closed set. But yeah, the wedding scene took three weeks. Everything was authentic. All the extras were real Italian.
Wow.
Francis put a lot of his friends in. I think my dad had some friends in there. Down to the food. Everything was like the real Sicilian food for craft service. The guy who sings, he's an extra, I think. So, you know, it's, yeah.
That's wild. And I didn't realize that, you know, as your dad kept singing after the film, he incorporated some of the stuff into his act.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, my dad also wanted this part, not just that the acting in the scene is so pivotal, but he was a part of the soundtrack. And as a singer, you want to be on a soundtrack, and especially something like that, and those kinds of songs, and he's identified with that music, and that he got to take throughout his career. He performed 90% of the year. It was a big part of his act. If he didn't do them, they would do those songs, you know. He used to have a screen that came down on the set, I mean on the stage, and you'd hear, and everyone just, oh, you know, and because it's haunting. And they always clapped and got so excited when he did that. It was a big deal for him. He got stopped on airplanes. Can you sign Johnny Fontaine? And he's like, my name's Al Martino. We'll sign it, Johnny Fontaine. There's a lot of eBay autographs. Johnny Fontaine's dad.
Was he okay with that? I mean, he's a singer. You know,
he loved it. He was played as singer, and he loved his part, and it became such a part of him and his legacy. No, he didn't mind it, I don't think.
And you told me this was the first film you ever saw?
This is the first movie I ever saw, because it was when they played Godfather on TV. I think it was like 1977 or 78, and they played both together, remember?
Yeah.
Two came before one, and my whole life, when I was a kid, I thought he always was the first 10 minutes. I had to sit through the whole second one to get to the first one, and then I realized I was watching something at a really young age, really, really heavy.
Yeah.
You know, and I had a lot of questions for Dad, because I thought some of it was real. But, you know, but there was a lot of that happened to him in his real life, so it's not so out there.
I mean, was he amazed at all the synchronicity of how this all kind of echoed his life, and he got to play it? Not only that.
I don't think. I think to this day we still can't believe we're part of something like that. Yeah, it's hard. You know, you don't take it for granted. You know, it's just something that follows you. I think The Godfather came up in his life 5-6 times a week by different people. I remember when Billy Joel had his 50th birthday party, his dream was to have Dad come to his house and sing the wedding song from The Godfather, and he flew him in. And I think you still can't believe when imagine that guest list, you know, and just stuff like that always seemed to just blow us away. And I haven't seen it in 20 years, so.
Is that right? Wow.
I've seen sections of it, but not fully all the way through in this theater. So.
Oh, this is so great. And has it been a factor in your life too?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm really proud of it, and I'm proud of him, and I'm proud of the movie. It's my favorite movie. It probably would have been even if he hadn't been in it. Yeah.
That's great.
Yes.
Well,
thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, this is so great.
Are you guys ready? Watch this.
I think it's time to
Right if I didn't introduce my mother, who, Judy, say hi to Judy. They've been married older. She's witnessed all of this. And hi, Dad. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you, guys.